And welcome back, everybody, to the Podcaster Nation. I say welcome back because I know you were just listening to our stuff and you came back because you wanted even more. Well, guess what? We have more for you. This is the podcast. It's about podcasters, it's for podcasters, and it's done by podcasters. And man, you are so smart. You cracked the code and you guessed it. Our guest today is a podcaster. Who figured? There you go. Folks, this is the place where we all come together to support each other. This is the place where the rising tide raises all ships. That's why we're here. That's why we're lifting each other up. And that's why we're talking to this awesome dude today. All right. Normally, I'll list off all the podcasts that somebody has an interest in. This guy has, I think, I don't know, 15, 20. Okay. He's got four. But among his podcasts are the Podcast Mogul's Playbook and the Phil Better Show. I'll let him tell you about all the other ones. Please welcome Phil Better. Phil, how you doing?
I am doing awesome, Roy. I thank you so much for being having me on your podcast. I'm excited to talk to everybody about the multitude of podcasts I have. Only the four of them. Don't worry, I'm not gonna list off 1,000 here.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we start with that real quick? Just tell everybody what your four podcasts are. Quick little tidbit about what they're all about, and
Mm.
then let's pull back the curtain a little bit.
Okay, so I'll start from newest to oldest. We got the podcast Moguls Playbook, which is pretty much I decided, hey, why write a book when podcasting is how I made my money? It's pretty much my playbook. It's the book that I should have written a long time ago, but I never did because I was too focused on podcasting. So it's pretty much my playbook. What I tell people to how to monetize, how to get sponsors, how blah blah blah. You just listen and you can make your podcast money and grow, of course. The first couple of episodes is just how to launch your podcast, like what every podcast about podcast should have. Like evergreen content.
Absolutely.
Then we have Stock Dirty to Me, which is a podcast that's semi updated about for beginner investors, pretty much to learn the basics of investing in the stock market without spending all your time trying to trade stocks and win the market that way. Um, then I have Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast, which is the flagship of my empire of podcasting, as I like to call it. It's an award-winning podcast that has helped me, that created the empire that I have since spawned. And then we have my baby, the Phil Better Show, which is my love story to cinema. I'm a cinephile, and so that was something that's put on hiatus now, but it is planned to come back bigger and stronger in the future. But that is who I am. I love podcasting. Podcasting has given me the freedom to live my life and do what I want.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Love that. I'm dying to know how you got into all this stuff. Where you came from, who this guy is behind the mic. So, tell the audience who is Phil Better. What are you about, brother?
Okay, so it's easier to tell you what I'm about first than who I am because who I am is longer than what I'm about. I'm about helping. My main goal is 100 million podcasts launched, monetized, and growing. There's 8 billion of us on the planet. 100 million podcasts is easy to get to. There's currently 4 million podcasts out there, but actually there's only like 190, I think, last week that actually put up a new episode. But there's about 400,000 active podcasts. Okay,
Sure.
out there that are in the last 90 days have put out an episode. I got four of them. That's why I'm keeping this industry running. But I'm about getting people the freedom that they want because I believe everybody should have the choice of, hey, I want to work that 9 to 5, or I want to start my own little thing that makes me enough that I can do, travel or, just raise my child without having to worry about paying bills. And that's what I want for the world. Like that's all I care about. So that's simple. What I'm about, just like helping people find their freedom through podcasting because I found my freedom. What started this back in 2014, a friend of mine gave me a book called Podcasting for Dummies. And that started my journey on there. There was an attempt at a podcast. A recording has been made, but has been since deleted and lost to time, which is thankfully very good because it was horrible. As I tell my clients, your first podcast episode will be your best and worst episode. This was just the worst. It was just imagine a 24-year-old trying to make a podcast about manliness, right? What does a 24-year-old know about manliness? That barely into manhood as it is, right?
Gotcha.
But that spawned me to learning more about podcasting because I never heard of podcasting, right? It had been actually just coined 10 years earlier with the iPod, right? In 2004. But like, I'm like, okay, whatever. And I started listening to different podcasts. Kevin Smith had a podcast. I was like, Kevin Smith, good. I need to listen to whatever Kevin Smith said. He was an idol of me. Clerks is just a phenomenal film. And yes, he's not the most highbrow, but some of his filmmaking is beautiful and that. So I started listening to that. Then there was the Weekly Planet about two Aussie boys, just talking about pulp culture and just like some of the stuff like what was coming out was hot. Like the Marvel universe was blowing up, and so I was listening to their podcast, and I loved the banter that they had together. And it was like, okay, I think I can do something with this, right? And then it wasn't until 2017 where I launched the Phil Better Show, which just mm, you dive into a world of that podcasters at that time didn't really want to share information because they're like,
Right.
no, because I want to grow bigger than you because the market is so small, right? Because there wasn't a big listenership. And in 2020, with the world doing what the world was doing in 2020, I don't want to damage the SEO on this podcast by getting hit with saying certain words that everybody wants to avoid. So yeah, 2020 happened. I burnt out. Uh, 2019 was the worst year of my life, but also the best year of my life because I got to go to Ireland and London and
Hmm.
England for it, right? But it also led to like at the end of the year, me being in the darkest, deepest pit of oblivion, right? Then I burnt official burnout on January 31st from the doctor to the office. 2 months off because I was like, I'm a man. I don't need much time to figure out my problems. I just need, a long vacation. That's all I need. I'm an idiot. And take as much time as you can get from your people that are smarter than you. If they say you should have longer, you take longer. And if they say how much time do you want, you take as much time as you need, and more than 2 months. But that 2 months gave me time to start yoga, start reflecting, start investing into who I am. I'm like, I always said if I had the time I would do it, right? And now you got time of plenty, you got 2 months, what are you going to do with it? So started investing in myself, started watching YouTube a lot more, and there was popping up of these entrepreneurs online making money through websites and YouTube and all this, but they were selling courses, and I'm like, you know what, that's interesting. So I tried, and no, I should have rested. um, but I dabbled in it throughout the year, and in October I decided, you know what, I know nothing about how to be an entrepreneur. I've tried like printing on demand, I tried affiliate marketing, I tried and failed. And I'm like, I need to talk to people who know what the hell they're doing. So I came up with the Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur podcast. I had put Phil Better on hiatus because I was like, I can't do all of this. I was, editing the podcast, figuring out how to do the show notes, right, creating the cover art. I was doing everything plus my life, my personal life, and my business side, my not my business side, but my career side was in like just it was bad. Right, I was in a dark place. It wasn't good. So that I put on hiatus. I started just focusing on myself. I started asking entrepreneurs in November with the idea like I'm going to launch in December 1st, 2020. I'm like, I'm launching this podcast. I'm going to have answers on how to like monetize stuff, how to do this, how to do like what it is to be an entrepreneur. What do you need to know? Um, so I was back at work from 9 a.m. to 5. I was doing my day job, working at a bank, still at home because 2020. 5:30 to 10, I was interviewing people for 30 to 45 minutes. Just blocks, boom, 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 boom. All of November, Monday to Friday. Sometimes on Saturdays, I was doing it as well, like all day Saturdays from noon to 10. That's all I was doing. If I wasn't interviewing people, I was editing the podcasts just to get them ready. December 1st came. I think I launched 3 episodes nearly every week for the whole month of December. That's how much I had ready in the catalog. Um, then by March, just past this past March was the fifth anniversary, but it won an award for best business podcast in 2020 with only like a dozen episodes launched. But in January, I interviewed Lloyd Ross, who became my first client to launch, monetize, and grow his podcast. We just celebrated over close to, I think we're over 5,000 listeners, followers on Spotify and Apple. But just on Spotify, he's nearly at 33,000
Nice.
followers that just listen to his podcast, which is the Money Grows on Trees podcast, which is an amazing podcast if you want to learn how to make money grow on trees, right? Then from there, I launched a couple of mini podcasts, which failed, but which was okay because it was learning different techniques. Um, the investing in yourself was really to learn how to become an entrepreneur, and what was my zone of genius? Podcasting, launching, monetizing, growing podcasts. Well, at that time, growing podcasting, but Lloyd Ross didn't know anything about podcasting. He was like, he didn't even know how to download a podcast, and his friends were telling him that he had to launch a podcast. And I said, "Look, give me 4 hours a month, and I'll take care of the rest." And he's like, "What do you mean? Don't I have to interview people?" I'm like, "No, you have a book. Talk about your book." There we go. Right. That was my pitch, and he was like, "Okay." So he's like, "How much?" And we bartered. Because it was brand new, right? He's told me that he got a dimes on the dollar deal here with my services, but it helped launch my career. So I'm like, I got more out of it than I think we had an equal exchange. But launch forward a Facebook group called investor beginning investors or investing for beginners
Okay.
hired me to launch a podcast, a live stream system for them from what I was doing with Lloyd, my podcast, and some other podcasts that I was coaching at the time. I wasn't full on production. I was just the producers were asking me questions like the TWS podcast, the SJ Childs podcast, the Cloud Chronicles, and Up in Smoke. I think I'm not sure about that one. That name they keep changing their name, so I can't remember at the time what it was. I was coaching them on how to get monetized and stuff, while you know doing other things, trying to find the freedom. Launched the podcast live stream to the group. We did record numbers. We were able to create a monetized offshoot, like a Patreon group that gave more in-depth conversations and not stock recommendations, but like, hey, let's see your portfolio. Let's give you a review of it and say, okay, why do you have this? Like, what's the reason to it? And like, you have a millionaire investor or a seven-figure investor um, in that group, and you're getting like great advice from him how he built his portfolio. Um, Plus someone who is uh like literally an accountant, so like who's like does stock market things. Like this person's smart, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm just gonna shut up and just like listen, which is the best thing podcasting has ever taught me. Ask a question, shut up, and just listen to the answer because you'll get gold. I'm like Roy is doing right now, and he's like, I can't wait to ask you questions about monetizing. From there,
This is gold, brother.
I know. So the group kind of had a falling out in the management, and I was able to grab the IP of Stock Dirty to me, so to launch the audio version of it. So that is updated somewhat regularly, and the podcast Mogul Playbook came out this year. A very soft launch. There's another podcast I have in the works called Made in the Maple, which is about Canadian businesses. But yeah, that one is in the process of being launched. We're recording episodes, so I don't want to talk too much about it.
Got it.
But yeah, that is what I do. My goal is to be like, I am already a mogul. I have multiple goals, a podcast, monetize multiple different ways, grown to different levels that I'm happy and have helped other people grow and monetize their podcasts so that they can get the benefit and leveraging podcasting to get the freedom. But if you're a business owner, it is the, as Lloyd Ross says, the simplest and cheapest way to educate your audience and give value to your audience.
Beautiful. Well, that's awesome. I would love to hear all these other things too, but we'll get to them. Don't worry, we'll get there. Like you said, sometimes you got to just shut up and listen, and that was very interesting. I did see the maple one on your social media
Yeah,
earlier.
I'm posting about it to get more people. What it is a
I know
shout out
you want
to
to
all.
talk about it. Come on, you want to talk about it.
Yeah, I do. I love it because I'm not getting enough people hearing about it. So it's a love letter to Canada. It's like Canada's given me so much, and with the current situation going in the world, uh, and unfortunately the tariffs that we have to face with the U.S., I was like, let's populate some local Canadian businesses, and so I'm just looking for local Canadian businesses. They can be whatever it is, physical locations, digital locations. As long as you're Canadian, I want you on the podcast so we can just talk about what it means to be one, a Canadian business, and two, just about your business. Like what is your business goals, and talk so that the audience can get to know you, because that's the best way to build authority through podcasting. Is just, I'm lending my authority to you, the business owner. So if I have you on my podcast, my audience is going to be like, okay, if Phil trusts this person, we got to trust this person.
Nice.
And if I'm not putting out episodes of I think of a quality that deserves it, I'm not going to put out the episode. Or if I don't align with some of the answers that I have had with guests, the episode doesn't go out because it's like, no, I'm sorry, I can't. It's there's yeah, that there's a line that you kind of have to draw as a podcaster. You can't just release everything just to get the downloads, even if it's controversial, if you don't agree with it.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay. I appreciate your outlook on all that. Are you Canadian?
Yes, I'm Canadian.
Okay.
Yeah,
I,
I'm
I
from
missed that, but that's
a
awesome.
small town called Montreal, Quebec. I don't know if you've heard of it. They have a
Montreal.
hockey team. They hosted the Olympics once. You know,
Hmm.
um,
Did they have a baseball team at some point?
yeah, they had a baseball team, and there's rumbling that we may get another one back, but you didn't hear it from me. I don't have a sports podcast. I just help them produce podcasts.
Right. Okay. Well, let's talk about that because I do love that. You and I both do, certain things in terms of like coaching and helping other folks, and I love that because I love comparing notes and hearing new ideas. Um, you are also a podcast producer, okay,
Yes.
and you help folks get started. Tell everybody a little bit about what that's about.
Okay, so it's pretty much, if you have a podcast, great, I'll help you. If you don't have a podcast and you have like no idea what you want your podcast to be, how you can integrate it into your business, but you're like, I keep hearing I need a podcast, but I don't know. I'm like, sit down, let's talk.
Right.
We identify your ideal audience. Like, what are you looking to do? Monetize your audience or monetize your guest? And they're like, I want to, if it's a B2B, you're monetizing your guest, right? You're not looking to get audience from that because it's a lot more work. If you're looking to monetize your audience, okay, how are we going to do that? Like, what does it look like? Are you going to be teaching them something so that and if they want more information, they're going to buy, like we did with Lloyd Ross, and ended up winning a two comma club award winner. He's a two comma club award winner with the market. Part of the marketing was his podcast, right? So he was able to sell a lot of books, which ended up in the funnel to his coaching and that, right? So we build a funnel that way for your business. If you're monetizing your guests, great. It's very simple. Who the hell is your ideal client? They're this person. Let's get them on the podcast. Simple as that. It's better than a sales call because you're building that connection. You're like, hey, come on my podcast. We can talk about your business, like what you're doing right now. You're talking about my podcast, my process, and who I am, but you're getting gold for your audience as well. And then you're able to say, hey, we built this relationship. These are my services. Would that be something you're interested in? Yes or no? Like, you do a simple sales call and they're like, oh, yeah. But in the episode, you drop that kind of question, that what's your expertise? Like, mine is monetization, right? So I would drop that question in the interview. Hey, have you ever, you have a podcast? They're like, no. If it's to invest in yourself, do you have a podcast? No. Oh, I think you would do a podcast would help your marketing, but that's something we can talk about later. Moving on, and it's just a simple like flow. Because if they have a podcast, great. Let's talk about your podcast. I want to know more about your podcast because you're giving me information to know whether or not I would be a great fit for you. Right? If you have a podcast, great. Do you monetize that podcast? No, something we can talk about later. What's your plan with your podcast? Right? It's a simple question, and people are like, but because you're so close to the trees, right? You don't see things that are just there.
Right.
It's really easy for everybody else to someone looking out from 3,000 feet. And like you said in the beginning of the episode, a rising tide lifts all ships. I'm here to help. Like, I will tell you everything. Like, Roy will ask me the questions. I will say, okay, if you have this type of podcast, this is how you can monetize and blah, 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 because I've interviewed 600 entrepreneurs. I've asked them, how do you make money? Right. And they're like, oh, so I'm a marketing person. I focus on this. I'm like, cool. So that's neat. So now I know, okay, a podcast about marketing. Everybody's going to want to know about marketing, right? But then there's this, that's the overall all niche, right? Like marketing, boom. But then you have Facebook ads, Instagram ads, you
Right.
know, TikTok ads, Spotify ads, media buying, you know, website design, social media management. Like you have under marketing, you have billions of little sub niches. And then under that, you have another 1,000 different sub niches as well, because you have all the industries under needing to those marketing under each one of those funnels. Then you have another 1,000 underneath. You know, it's like a root system. Podcasting is the tree, but our root system, because of all the niches, it just goes so deep. And it's like, and then on the flip side, then we look at the businesses. You have all the different types of businesses out there, you know, like restaurants. Then you have lawyers, you know, you have all these other the professions, and then, you know, the different types of service, B2C type clients, you know, businesses that serve clients. They can have a podcast. They can sponsor podcasts that can monetize that end. Simply as saying, hey, if you go to John's Deli, you know, and say podcasting, you get 15% off. John's Deli is already running a 15% deal off just if you just because, right? It's their normal deal. But this is a way for both the business and the podcast to track it, to see if it works, you know. And if John Deli sees an uptick of people saying podcast, you know, okay, it makes sense for me to invest in podcasts because there is a reach there. But on the flip side, the podcaster, even if he doesn't get paid, he has that free deal. He has a case study now. He's like, hey, you go to John's Deli, like, okay, before you had zero, now 90 days out, what's it like? We had 100 people come in and say podcasting to us. In 90 days, that's one person nearly a day, you know, one or like 1.25 or whatever the math is. But now you have a case study. Hey, we increased this person's business by, X amount over 90 days by them sponsoring us. Now you have a valuable proposition, and all you did was say this podcast was sponsored. That's not including, you know, if you have an email list, doing social media posts, you know, in your show notes, in your weekly newsletter, on your website, you know, all these other places that you should be, you know, having. Sorry, I
It's
talk a
okay.
lot.
Brother, you're on a roll.
I know, like
You're
you
killing it.
have to stop me. You have to stop me because I will just go and go and go. Because usually I'm on the flip side. I don't get to talk. I have to restrain myself.
That's the
Now as a guest, I'm like,
whole point of the show, man. Whole point of
yeah.
the show.
Here's the
Go
thing:
for it.
podcasting, if you're a business, can help you grow your following, grow your marketing. It is a marketing tool that just gives. You can get so much content just out of a podcast episode, whether it's a solo episode or it's an interview like we're doing right now, or it's a panel show that I did with like Stock Dirty to Me, where it's like one person is the host, and then you have your experts, which can be interchangeable, can be the same, whatever you want. That's amazing tools for you to have, because then you can cut up for clips. You have a blog post, you have an email, and you have content galore for your social media. And if you're doing solo episodes, it's like 4 hours of your time a month just to record. You're like, okay, I'm going to talk about this topic, this topic, this topic, and this topic. Okay, cool. Now you just write your little notes on it, and then you just sit down and you record the episode. 4 hours it's going to take you if you do like, everything included, doing a bit of research, and then the recording can take you what, 2 hours of your time maybe, and you refine that process, and then you hire someone to do the research for you, and like you start like you're if you're an entrepreneur, you know this stuff, you know how to, you build businesses, and you know how to extradite yourself so that your CEO, which we all know the CEO does nothing in businesses, they just collect a paycheck and say every once in a while check in, make sure everything's running smoothly, right? That's their job. They're the caretaker of the business, and that's your job, caretaker of your businesses. And then on the flip side, if you're a podcaster, I know I'm jumping both sides here, but I love both sides because I work with the business owners, but I help the independent podcasters because I was one of them, and I want them to make money because without them, we don't have this podcasting boom. It was in 2020 when entrepreneurs, marketers came out of the booth going, "Damn it, we need to make money, but ads are getting expensive. How can we do this?" And then the public speaking zone was like, "We need to talk because that's how we make money. How do we do this?" And then podcasting, clack. That's all it is. Here, we'll help you get booked on We'll help you get booked on podcasting to get your mouth. And so entrepreneurs figured out, oh, we can make money in podcasting, and they started growing the market. And now everybody talks about it. But I'll tell you, independent podcasters, your main goal is using podcasting as a marketing tool to sell your audience something. That's your goal. So, and you're not selling them fluff. It's, hey, you either have a Patreon, which is you learn how to grow a membership.
Right.
That's the flip. On the entrepreneur side, it's membership. So if you're a podcaster who wants to grow Patreon or coffee or anything that's like a membership type thing, a subscription, find out how to grow memberships. Once you grow memberships, boom, you're just look at what the podcast Shits and Gigs did. Within the first 10 minutes of their podcast, every single episode, they said, hey, make sure you join the cult, which is their Patreon. And you become culties, become cult babies, and, people like to be part of an exclusive club. And if you
Right.
give them a name, if you show value, and they only have two tiers, you're a baby or you're a leader, or you're either a cult baby or you're a cult leader. They, at the time, I think, of recording, have close to 36. No, I think either 36 or 26,000 paid members, paying between
Nice.
$15 a month. That's not including their spot. They're not including any ads that they read on the podcast, not including any YouTube revenue, TikTok revenue, or any other creator funds that they're a part of. That's just from people going from the podcast to their Patreon, because in the first 10 minutes, and of course, their call to action nearly every episode in the early days was to join their Patreon for exclusivity. That's how you do it if you're just a solo podcast. Hey, we're doing Patreon. If you're affiliate, you're like, hey, we have, Podcastle, which is a great tool. You should check out the Podcast Mogul Playbook to learn more about it. Or there's Podcastle. Yeah, Podcastle for editing. It's Podcastle AI. So it's podcastle.ai for your editing your podcast, for adding sound. Like pretty much it's a high level uh, podcast edit tool, which is great. You can record episodes, you can edit videos, a great tool to use. Then you have Cast Magic, which is another great tool to use. It's an AI tool, but it's think ChatGPT, but for every single one of your episodes. Imagine having ChatGPT every single episode. You upload your audio, it will give you great. If you want, it gives you the transcript and it will name
Right.
tag names. But from there, you have titles, show notes, and you can customize these show notes. So if you're like, no, I don't like this, let's customize this. Let's make it specifically to my core audience instead of being so generic. You can do that. You can give it examples of how you write so that its tone's going to be how you want it to be as a podcaster, or you can use it as if you're a business owner, for meetings, right? You have a lot of Zoom meetings. You can grow content out of it. If you have Zoom meetings, sometimes we've seen some big bosses not like being on Zoom meetings because things come out. But anyways, barring being one of those types of people, if you do use Zooms for meetings, or if you're a consultant and you need to get content for the client you just had a meeting with, you can pull that out. Here are your three action steps, blah blah blah, whatever you need. This is when I should follow up and all this stuff. It's a great tool to have, and it's part of my tool stack. And then yeah, those tools, yeah, those are some of them. If you're in the podcasting world, they have affiliate programs.
Right.
You talk about the tools that you use as a podcaster, or if you're social media, if you hire someone to do all the technical stuff, you talk about other programs. Like, look at social media. They have T-Move, or like some person's like, I found this on Amazon. Go check out my link in my bio to find out more. Links straight to the tool or an email list, which what you want. So once they're on your email list, you have a constant connection to them, because you never know when you'll be put into jail on social media, on whatever form. But
Right.
once you can sell sponsorship spots on that as well, right? Because you can say, hey, this podcast was sponsored by the podcast on podcasting, or the Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur podcast, or all my podcasts. Like, self promotion is the only way to win. But or like, sometimes I talk about my friend. There's a buddy of mine, Jeff Rivella, who's an amazing guy. He opened up a studio for a theater, sorry, a podcasting theater in a small town in Trenton, Pennsylvania. Right, just outside of Pittsburgh, about a 20-minute drive from outside of Pittsburgh, or 25-minute drive out of Pittsburgh, which apparently is too far for people in Pittsburgh. And I'm like, bro, I have to drive 2 hours just to get to the next big town. Like, what are you talking about? If I want to go to to Toronto, it's a good 6 hour drive, but like, give me a break. 20-minute drive, I'll do it. That's just to Laval, like that, bro. That's easy. That's the driving from one end of Montreal to the other, dude. What's wrong with you? And that's if there's no traffic. But it's this nice little theater for podcasters, and he doesn't charge you to do a live show. So you, as a podcaster, don't get charged to use his equipment, which he has 6 cameras. It's a 6 camera setup. Five in the studio. One is the God camera, where you see it's the producer's seat, right, where he has all his stuff, and you can see if he needs to be. If it's his show, he'll jump on. If it's not, he never uses the God camera, right? Live switching and all that, but you have the main camera for the stage. You got audience camera. You got, and I should not have done that. You have a camera on your right, a camera on your left. So you can, if you have a talk show type show, you can zoom in on one guest, zoom in, you get the wide shot. You can get your audience if you want. You can have at least 40 people in the audience.
Wow.
40 audience, right? It's a very small, very cozy theater. And instead of you as a podcaster getting charged, you can charge your audience, and you'll split split the cost. But not only do you get the theater, my guy Jeff will also create the landing page, handle the website for the event. If you want promotion, he will handle the promotion as well, but you have to kind of pay a bit for the promotion. But you get that, but you also get as a podcaster, you get the chance to see your audience, especially if you built that local connection. And he gave me the opportunity to go down and speak to a great crowd, both live and in person. So it was a nice mix at their global podcasting. He only made it global because I was coming down. Normally it's just the Pittsburgh, podcast meetup. He's like, Phil's coming. It's global, baby.
It's international now.
Yeah. He's like, now, but what it is it paid me to come down. Right. Bastard didn't cover my flight. That's fine, right? But like, it's a bit costly to fly a Canadian down because of taxes. We're taxed to no hell, but that's fine. We have Medicare. Yay, which is actually pretty good. No lie. But I went down, visited him, had a great time meeting actually in person another podcaster, like, because it's very rare that we get to meet in person unless it's a convention. And I'm an international speaker now, because I've spoken to a group of people both locally and through live stream, on stage in front of a group of people. So I've given a speech. I talked about how to monetize a podcast, which is really simple. Three simple ways Sell something that's your own to your audience. That's what Lloyd Ross did. Interview your ideal client. That's what I do. That's how I monetize. And then the final is a group. Have a group. Be it on Patreon, be it on Coffee, be it on Fundraiser, wherever you can have a private group that you can charge people. And ClickFunnels has a thing, Kajabi has something. There's another one out there. What, Groove Funnel? No, Groove Funnels I think has it. Go High Level has something that you can create a membership
Yep.
that you can use, or you just go to stripe.com, create a charge, and then make your Facebook account, Facebook group private, and they have to pay to get in. Like,
There you go.
if you want to like keep it simple, your moniker Kiss, keep
Mhm.
it simple, stupid. Page, that's the simplest way. You they pay a fee, you get a like 3%, something like that. If you don't Stripe, it's a free account, but you have to pay high fees. But you have a Facebook group. You don't have to worry about the Facebook group. Facebook is doing as much as it can to help promote it, and you make it so that they have to put their email address in it. And then once you get to a point where that starts getting a little costly to do because it's like costing you time and energy, move to Patreon. Move to pay the fees because you already have the monthly income coming to cover it. But what you do is you just promote your group, promote your product, promote your services to your audience. Like, you can even say it in the episode if you're even better, interviewing your audience, your ideal client. This podcast is brought to you by the podcast Mogul. Monetize your podcast the right way. Now you're going to learn how to make money anyway. So you do your intro,
Right.
whatever, it's pre-recorded or whatever, but you say it's sponsored, right? And you play it before the episode because you have a live streaming service like Wave.video, another service that's great for podcasters. To live stream to YouTube, to Facebook, to Instagram, to LinkedIn, to give more value, because you can be like, hey, if you want to be part of the live recording, here's the unlisted link on YouTube. Boom. There's your value. The audience can be a part of it. They can be part of the experience. And now you have this live recording, and they can ask questions of your guest. If the guest is down for it, if the guest is like, no, I don't like that, then you do this simple Zoom and you're like, okay, whatever. I have to do the pitch the old school way. There's different ways of monetizing your podcast. And it's just like stepping out and going, okay, this isn't my podcast. How would I monetize it if it wasn't mine? And then you'll come up with 1,000 different ways. And you're like, I'm an idiot.
I love that you said that part, because when someone's talking about their own podcast, they completely lose all their creativity. And that's it. If I'm trying to solve your problem, then I can come up with a bunch of different things. But when it's mine, it's like, well, I need a sponsor or I need an ad buy. And then they're out.
And it's like, why not put your own? Be your own sponsor. Like, there was on my TikTok, I call it the podcast Mogul. Pretty simple. There's a TikTok that I stitch where a guy is talking about how before he had any sponsors, he put his own sponsors in. He talked about Windex was a sponsor when Windex wasn't. And then it's like, okay, you have an actual business. If it's not your business, fine. Go talk to your boss. Like, my third episode, I believe it's like the first 3 episodes I released, apart from the trailer, was with Roy Sutton of Gas Digital. Great guy. Was his claim to fame at the time was he was on sex, the gay to 5 gays, one gay straight, helping them get all fancy and look good and stuff. It was a show on like TLC, I think. Anyways, it was early 2000s type thing, but
Yeah, no idea.
the DJ, both on radio and clubs in that, and he runs this digital network now, where he has the SNG. No. Anyways, it's like rock and roll and sex, something like that. A moniker like that. That's his podcast. And the way he monetized it was he was a DJ at a strip club, and he went up to his boss and like, hey, do you want to sponsor my podcast? He's like, yeah, how much? He's like, $25 an episode. He's like, here's $100. Simple as that. He like kept it simple, and that's all it is. It's like if you work for someone and you're like, well, my ideal audience is kind of in line with what you do. Talk to your boss. There's no the worst thing he's going to say is no,
Right.
or she'll no. Oh no. You got rejected. It's not the end of the world. You're still alive, sweetheart. Let's go. Back up.
I love
There's
it.
more things to do. At least you'll get 100 no's before you get to your first yes. It's part of life.
Love it.
You bat 100, all the 1,000 or whatever it is. Saying or 500 or I don't know sports
Some
metaphors.
number. Yeah, some number. That's it. We'll get there.
Use podcasts. I'm a nerd. Like, come on.
It's all good. It's all good.
Like hockey.
Well, you're Canadian. I mean, it's in your blood. It's
I don't do baseball. I do hockey. Yes, we had a baseball team. My dad went to drink. Well, not really drink. No, like you went for, it's known for drinking. It's a boring ass sport if you're not drunk. Trust me, as an adult,
it's
as
yeah.
a kid, you're amazed. But as an adult, I know why there's so much beer sales.
All right, so we could talk about monetization until the cows come home. But you mentioned several times, promote, 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 and that's something that everybody tells everybody to do. It's something everybody knows they have to do. It's something nobody wants to do. So let me just ask you, as someone as experienced as you are, what have you found to be some of the most effective, ways to promote, promote, promote? And have you found anything that's just really a dog?
That just doesn't work. Is that
Yeah,
what
this
you're saying?
just doesn't work. Like, hey, I did this, but
Yeah. Number one,
man,
that's
don't recommend that.
the best way that will guarantee zero is just posting the link. That will not get you anything. Zero on zero. Like you want to fail a test, that's like not even getting your name right on the SATs. Right. We don't have the SATs up in Canada, but I hear, if you can't spell your name, it's very bad on the SATs. So like that's that level of getting nothing. Then it's just posting in a random group. We're live and not talking about what you're talking about. Or giving a very brief vague thing like this show is live talking about this topic. Why should I care? What does this pod? What do you argue with you? Who are you? Right? That's and just posting it in random groups won't work, especially if you're in a podcasting group about podcasting. Is that your ideal audience? Like if Roy here was like, I'm going live in a podcasting group about podcasting, talking to podcasters about their podcast, makes sense. Audience is there.
Right.
We're doing a live show about the NFL in a podcasting group about podcasters. You'll have maybe a few podcasters in there that may be interested. Like if you're talking the full NFL or if you're talking about a specific team, which you should be, and never concentrate on the full sports spectrum because who are you, NSN, TSN, ESPN, or whatever? No, you're Joe Schmo in your basement, right? So focus on the core things that you can do, like James Lynch, who's an amazing MMA interviewer. I helped produce a podcast with him. The 1-2 punch. It was on NSPN, which is still going. It's a local Buccaneers network. But we interviewed UFC stars and but the mixed martial arts in general, using both the co-hosts as the connections. But James, he started at the bottom, right? Local, small mixed martial arts events, the jujitsus, this and that, and just interviewing all these people just to interview. One, it hones your skills. Two, you get the connections to the guys and girls who are actually going to be something. But also you get to know the promoters, and the promoters know who other promoters. And you start growing, and now he's invited to UFC events all the time and he has major UFC stars on his podcast, Lynch on Sports, I believe it is. But you just search James Lynch on his podcast all the time. It's the same thing that Chris Van Vliet did to get all the major WWF stars and AEW stars and all that, have those connections. He started interviewing in the indies. He was in the wrestling indie scene as both a wrestler, promoter, and an interviewer. And he honed his skills interviewing like low level celebrities until he got his big break. You have to start small. You're gonna start talking to 100 unknowns until you get that one lucky, celebrity, if you will, or that millionaire who landed, who was like, "Yeah, I'll be on your podcast," and you're like, "Wait, what?
Right.
You rich? You ain't rich. You rich? You'll end up talking to those. Like, okay, like I am officially right now one away from Larry King. One of my guests have been interviewed by Larry King. Yeah. If you're not watching the video, Roy was like woke up and was like, "Wait, what?" Woke up from his slumber from Phil talking so much and was like, "Wait, what?" Larry King, which most podcasters who do interview podcasts in a more conversational style love Larry King because he is the
Yeah,
goat.
of course. One of the all-time greats, of course. Okay, interesting. Interesting. So, are you going to tell us what your favorite way of promoting is?
Oh yes, sorry.
It's okay. I mean, as much as you're talking, you got to answer the question too, brother.
I know I'm trying to run away from that question because I don't want people. No, the best way to do it is simply um, in Facebook groups that are with your ideal client or ideal audience member. We'll do since I do podcasting on podcasting, so I'll stay away from that. We're going to go to cinephiles. These are for the movie people, the people who will love movies. So if you're thinking about starting a podcast on movies, you're going into the groups that are based on the movies that you're watching. So if you're watching sci-fi movies, join the general sci-fi movie places. However, make sure you have groups or your Facebook group is specifically on your niche. So if it's like 90s sci-fi films, you find those groups that are talking about those 90s sci-fi films. You jump into the comments of those groups. So you make a thread saying, "Hey, what's your favorite XYZ movie?" Like with Charlie, with Charlie Theron in the 90s, favorite sci-fi movie. Basic question. Know you're going to get traffic from it, right? Like it, jump in the comments and say, "This is our favorite Charlie Theron 90s sci-fi movie. We talked about it on the podcast. If you're interested, let me know and I'll share the link." But people are going to answer. And then people are like, "Oh, wait, you talked about my favorite movie." Or you go, "Hey, we would love to talk about this on our next episode. Is it okay if we include it?" People are like, "Oh, you have a podcast. Send me the link." Oh my God. Now you have an ideal, you're like your core audience who love 90s sci fi films, right? If you're getting super niched, is engaging with your post, which will hear on your episode that you have a Patreon that will go join the Patreon and then become super fans and start promoting it to the world. It's the $1.90 method by Gary Vee. Simple, all it is you go to other people's places and you give value, but on your page, 100% promote, promote, promote. You're out to get that moolah, baby.
Nice. Nice. All right, I appreciate that. Thanks for answering the question.
Like, no,
Finally.
it's now I'll be rich. Ha ha ha. Uh,
Yeah, that's the only reason I
I,
wanted a job is so I could pick your brain and you come
I,
up with all kinds of new things.
if you're a
No,
podcast, I want to pick my brain, or if you're a podcaster who has a podcast, I want to pick my brain. I'm welcome to come on your podcast because podcasting touches everything.
there you go. No, I love it. All right, listen, I got in this for the sake of time, I got to ask my corny question now.
Yes, please.
Um,
I was waiting for this corny question.
I'm a little afraid to do it now, just because I don't know what kind of
I'll give,
response I'm going to get.
I'll
But
give you a 30 seconds. I do have to get used to giving short answers because I am going to be on a time. So I'm going to shut up now and let you ask your corny question.
you're doing great, man. I mean, listen, I'm very good at the whole be quiet, let them roll, and you're just giving out gold. So why stop somebody who's giving everybody exactly what they want? You know what I mean? They hear from me all the time. They don't need to hear me today. But the corny question, right, is that when it comes to your podcasting, and for you, it's also running your business, everything that you're doing. What is it that you love the most, and what is it about podcasting that you just really hate the most?
I love talking to people. I've always had this deep need to know why, right? It's just a why. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? Why did you say that? Why? How does that like? Why? Like, and then why just keeps sprawling thousands of questions. I've always been curious. So I love just sitting down and just talking with people and just asking why. Like, why did you choose to leave the workforce? Why did you choose to go into, you have this master's degree in psychology, but you're over here doing marketing. Like, what's the relation? Like, why? Like, I know the relation because I've I've asked that question, but like, there's 1,000 different answers in there, right? And my goal is I want people to be working for themselves and understand the value that they have. When you're 17, you don't know the value. You need at least a decade. I think from 18 to 30, you need to work for someone to understand like work ethic. You should also be paid what you're worth, of course, and not, but after that, if you've done that kind of like, menial task and it's not something you're interested in, now you have this opportunity from 30 plus to create your own business, do something, attempt and fail because you're still young enough to mess up your life, like people say in your 20s, you're young enough to mess up your life. No, you need to learn work ethic, learn the ethic first, and then, you can kind of like shimmy around, like if you want to get married and that's your lot in life, go ahead. If you want to find other things, like go ahead and do it. Like you're 30, you have some skin in the game. You understand what it's like to be an adult, responsibility, paying bills. So you figure out how to start your own business, working for someone else on the side or whatever it is until you're able to be free. And what
Nice.
I hate before you ask, okay, now you have to ask the hate.
Yep.
Um, it's the finding the guests, to be honest. Going through the qualification of guests. So the solo podcast, very easy, love it. There's no work to it because I just record. Cat's Magic gives me all the stuff, upload it to the social media scheduler thingy program that I have, and then I'm off. Right? It's the interviewing that I have to. I've luckily delegated to. I hired a VA, call them my podcast coordinator. All they do is just scan the podcasts requests. When it comes from an individual, we're like, okay, cool. Do they qualify? Like, what do they hit the criteria? Are they going to bring value? Right? Because sometimes they're just there to promote themselves, and it's like, no, I'm sorry. I love the initiative, but got to keep it for my guests, right? And then there's the ones that are coming from agencies, and I'm like, okay, we're going to charge those people to be on the podcast. They don't get a free ride because, sorry, I need to one make money off my podcast, right? I'm not, ain't no lie there, right? But there's also the fact that you are paying someone to, you don't have the chance to outreach to me directly. You're going to get charged. Some say yes, and that comes into a great relationship with the agency. I have a couple of them that feed me guests because they have a small budget for it, so it's like, where can we meet? So that like both I get value out of this, but also we can promote it to your client, so you can feed me more guests. So there's less guests that I have to go out and reach, and Patrick can take care. Oops, don't think I was supposed to say his name, but my podcast coordinator can take care of all that mess because that's the one thing I hate. And it was the one thing I outsource. I don't mind editing. Patrick can do it. My podcast coordinator can do it as well. When I edit my own episodes, and sometimes I'll hand it off to them to take care of all that stuff. But really, it's just going through the guest quest because sometimes we get some of the weirdest ones. Like, this podcast doesn't even have guests on it. What are you talking about? Why are you trying to come on my podcast? No, like you need to talk to the person who's telling you how to find podcasts and fire them. I'll tell you how. Sometimes I get the weirdest requests, and I'm like, I can't work with this. I'm done. I'm fed up. I want to concentrate on talking to people if it's podcasting, and then learn more about the business side, which I'm also hating, but it's business. No one likes business.
So finding guests, that's interesting. I
It's
haven't
not a thing of
heard that one a
guests.
lot. Yeah.
It's not because if you look at it for some podcasters, not in the business world, it is difficult to get the guests. Like if you're in an entertainment podcast and you're still starting out and you want guests, it's somewhat hard to get those high level guests. I always say start with the Zs and move your way up, and you'll end up in the Bs or even the Ds. And like, hey, that's great because they have some status, right, that you can use. And but it is hard to find those guests that are quality and doing those weekly episodes where you interview and then you start getting the sludge because you're like, oh, I'll accept anybody, and it's not on brand. I get a lot of people who are in investments trying to come on the podcast, and it's like no, you should come over to this podcast, Stock 30 to me. But at the same time, it's crypto or they're Bitcoin investors, and it's like no, that's a hard no, and it's like and they're pushy. Some of them are so pushy with this for no. I don't want to deal with it, so it's like you know what, I can pay someone to deal with it. Good. Here are my regulations for my guests, boom, for each one of the podcasts that I take guests on, and they handle it. It's like it's cheap because it is someone who isn't in North America, but you know what? I they're getting a salary equal to here, right? I made sure of it. I'm like, look, I want to make sure that you're making, a nice little. You're not even doing 40 hours worth of work, but like the equivalent of like, okay, if I was paying you 40 hours a week, what would be the salary, equivalent to the job here? And I'm like, okay, we did it per hour, and then that's what he gets paid in his local currency, and he's fine with it. He doesn't
Cool.
yell at me. Happy.
Nice. Well, he
It
was
felt,
until you gave his name away.
yeah, people are gonna be, who is this? And I'll be like, he's a mysterious person. He doesn't like talking to people because he's kind of doing me a favor. He's also my editor, and he doesn't want more clients. So
Nice.
he's like, I'm happy working. You give me enough work. I don't want more people.
Okay. Before we move on to the next question, do you want to like give out Patrick's last name or social security number or
No, no,
anything?
no.
Or are we
I'm
okay?
gonna.
All right.
This is
All right.
the
Okay.
episode. I don't do it. Interview people because I don't know when to stop.
It's all good, man. I mean, you're on that side of the seat. This is a good training camp for you for these other podcasts you have to go on. So, all right. All right. As we kind of bring it to a close, the last question that I usually ask folks is, and I didn't tell you this earlier because you didn't want to know. You wanted to be surprised. All right. So I'm expecting a good answer here. But it's simple and it's easy, but it usually comes from the heart and it's usually pretty good. So, what is your best piece of advice for any podcaster out there who's not quite where you are yet and would like to be?
It may feel like you're going nowhere right now, but it will compound. The work you're doing now will compound into things you will never expect. If you had asked me 10 years ago that I would be sitting on a podcast in my own studio talking about podcasting, I would have laughed in your face. However, here we are from the book Podcasting for Dummies. What you do now, I want to use that quote from Gladiator. Will it echo in eternity? But it's true. What the work that you're putting in now, from interviewing over 600 entrepreneurs, over 400 creatives, and various other podcasts that I've done, is no one knows what they're doing when they started because they have delusions of grandeur. Those who realized that it was delusions of grandeur, but they could do it because they're already doing it, went on to succeed those delusions. Those who figured out that it was a delusion that they didn't have the chance, you never hear it from them. Believe in yourself and do the most delusional shit that you ever thought possible, and you'll be surprised what you can get out of it by rolling those dice. You may fail, but you've learned, and every failure is a lesson in getting to that success.
Beautiful. I love that. And I didn't even prep you for that question. That
I
was
know.
absolutely beautiful. For a minute there during that long pause, I thought I was going to have to rescue you. I was,
No, no, no. I was
I
I
was,
was gathering those thoughts because there was two answers I kind of wanted to give. One, just do it. Just simple, just do it. Then it was like no, because that's kind of an answer I gave to another question I got on my as the first time being an international speaker, which was also the third time I didn't say this, but the third time I've ever given a speech in front of people on the topic of podcasting. I've done it virtually, like this,
yeah,
easy peasy. No one else in the room to judge me, and the only person to judge me is you, Roy. And Roy, you've been a great host. He's amazing. You are listening to the
thanks.
podcast, made it this far. I want you to go whatever platform you're on, specifically if you're on Spotify. Make sure you give a rating. Comment on this episode. Roy is awesome because that helps us as well. You're listening to this podcast for a reason. Either you love Roy or you're listening to Phil. You love listening to Phil because you're like, oh, Phil always gives gold. So if you follow Phil and always give gold, you know what to do. You go into the comments, you write Roy is awesome, right? And if you're a listener of the podcast, because you're like Roy is awesome because he asks the great question, he gets those guests on that give gold and never shut up like Phil. Then you want to say Roy is awesome. Just put Roy is awesome. This is going to help more people find the podcast, and by help, and it's a simple access. It takes you 30 seconds. 30 seconds of your time. You're on your phone, you're on your Spotify, wherever you are, or if you're on Apple, just leave a review. I'm not a fan of Apple because it's so limiting. I prefer Spotify because everything is on it. But anyways, enough of my bias. Roy, what other questions do you want to ask Phil?
That's it, brother. That's the one that we end with. Time's up. We are good. I cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing everything you have. I know that, you came close to giving away some of the secret sauce a few times, and I appreciate you just being open and honest and, just helping everybody. There's nobody that's going to listen to this episode and isn't going to take something away that's going to help their podcast. So it's beautiful. It really was. Host of several podcasts here, folks, and go back and listen. You'll get them all. The podcast Mogul's Playbook is the one that I think is my favorite. But Phil Better. Phil, thank you so much for being on here today, brother.
It's my pleasure. I want to thank you, Roy, for getting me on the podcast, and to the audience for even taking a piece of the knowledge. Simply like, I don't want to listen to this guy ever again. That's a piece of knowledge. You hear it out. Or it's like, oh, I want to hear more about his stuff, or something I said was somewhat enlightening. I thank you for listening and making sure you rate this podcast 5 stars.
Right on. Right on. You've heard it, folks. So go give us a rating, check it out, or Phil may be coming for you. I'm not real sure how this is going to end up. But, folks, this has been another awesome episode of The Podcaster Nation. This is the podcast that is for podcasters. It's about podcasters and it's done by podcasters. Folks, this really is the place where the rising tide raises all ships. So keep sailing.